Hello and welcome, Fish here with another DCS Essential Guide to the F18. And in this video we're going to look at the various autopilot modes. And the autopilot system in the F18 is quite comprehensive and there's a lot of very useful features. So while we're taking off, I'm going to throw up on the screen the description of the essential modes there from the documentation. And we're going to make practical use of the autopilot system by following a navigation route. Gear up and flaps up. And let's now switch on our HSI, on the left DDI. Going to set our waypoint. We're going to box our waypoint push button, and we're also going to box our sequence button to bring up the flight plan onto the screen. And we're going to zoom out to 10 miles, and we're going to push our current steer point to waypoint 1. We're going to settle up at Angels 2 and a speed of around 300 knots. Okay, I'm going to bring up our autopilot now, and I'm going to switch the heading select button on the UFC, the second button down. As soon as we're at 2000. So we have barometric altitude on now, and that means our aircraft is going to hold us in this barometric altitude of 2000 feet. I'm also going to switch on our auto throttle, and I'm going to push our speed up a little bit first of all. And while I'm there, I'm going to switch the auto button, push button 11, so that we will follow the flight plan automatically. I've gone a little bit over in speed, but I'm going to set it at that anyway. So now I'm going to go back to our autopilot, and I'm going to switch on to couple mode, and couple mode will connect us to automatically track through our sequence of waypoints. So we can see we're set at waypoint 1 there, and when we get close to 1, you can see it's automatically swapped over to waypoint 2. Now waypoint 2 is not visible on our screen there, but the bearing pointer for it is, if I zoom out, we can bring it into the screen if we wish to see it. On a 20-mile scale, we can see it there. So our aircraft now is going to track towards that new waypoint, and we've maintained our speed, and we've maintained our altitude. I'm going to speed up this a little bit to get us through this part of the sequence, because nothing happens really. So we can see the symbol on the right hand side of our HUD there. We can see we're in CPL mode for sequence 1, and our waypoint is set at waypoint 2. We're 5 miles away, and we're in auto throttle control. And if we look at the autopilot page on our UFC, we can see that the barometric altitude is boxed and the couple mode is also boxed. So we're getting close to our waypoint 2 now. And I'm completely hands off throttle and stick now. And we can see it's automatically stepped to waypoint 3, and the aircraft now is tracking to waypoint 3. And note, by default the aircraft will switch to the next waypoint several miles before reaching the current waypoint, and this is in order to enable it to intercept the course accurately. And we can see it's turning out nicely onto that course. And we can see we rolled out perfectly on that course now. There is another option when we reach that waypoint, is to fly through the waypoint, and this would be very useful if you were doing a bombing or attack run, for instance, and you did want to overfly the exact waypoint. The disadvantage is it overshoots, and so when it sets a heading for the next course, it's going to be slightly off your course. So the way we do this is we go to the data, we go to waypoint button, and we can see we have an overfly button. So we're going to box the overfly button, which is push button 12, and we're going to go back by push button 10 to the HSI. And now we'll see what happens to our change of course when the waypoint changes automatically. Once again, I'm not touching throttle or stick. .6 miles from waypoint 3, we can see it on the HUD there. And now we can see what happened. It actually ran through that waypoint 3 and now has set a course for waypoint 4, and it's turning at a bank angle of, I think it's 60 degrees. There's two settings for the bank angle between automatic waypoints, and they can be set on the aircraft page, and we can see it there. It's push button 4, and there's two modes, there's navigation and there's tack. And navigation is set to 30 degrees of bank and tack is set to 60 degrees of bank. By default it's set to tack. Let's go back to the HSI, and now we're rolled out. So we can see we're rolled out for waypoint 4. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set our heading bug to north. Let's set it to 360. And now I'm going to go to waypoint mode. We're going to go to switch out of couple mode, and we're going to go to heading select mode. And now you see what the aircraft does. It starts to follow our heading bug. So the benefit of the heading bug is that you can make small adjustments to it, and for instance on the ingress to a target, if you set your heading bug to put the bomb fall line in the center, as you get closer you can make small adjustments to it without actually having to make adjustments on the stick to your aspect of the aircraft. So we're now going to switch on our course line by switching the course selector, and we're going to change that to 266. And I know this is the approach heading for our home plate. We're going to enter that in, and it's set our course line. Now unfortunately we have flown through that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to make our aircraft turn away from steer point 4 because we're quite close to it. So I want to demonstrate how the course is set. So I'm going to speed up this a little bit, and we're going to just fly away from steer point 4 for a moment. And now I'm going to adjust our course once more and have that course heading towards that course line. So you can see what's happening now. The autopilot is set. If we look at the page, the autopilot has got heading select and barometric altitude select. So we're automatically now following to the bearing of our heading bug. And now what we're going to do is we're going to switch to CPL mode, and remember our waypoint is set at 4, so I'm going to set the CPL mode, and you see automatically those options disappear. And now what the aircraft is going to do is going to try and track in to put ourselves onto that flight, that course line. We'll zoom in a little bit, we can get a better understanding of the geometry here. So the benefit of this autopilot mode with CPL and course is that the aircraft tries to put us not only on a heading for the steer point selected, but it also tries to align us on the course that we've input. This makes it very handy if, for instance, we want to track onto a BRC and we're busy with the aircraft and we want to allow the autopilot to do it. Now, you can see that it's going to sway back and forward a little bit, and this is one disadvantage of that mode. However, it does put us at a reasonable setting for that course. And what I do is, well, let's let it settle out here for a moment and we see what we end up with. I'm going to go out of auto throttle and I'm going to reduce our speed a little bit, and I'm also going to remove barometric altitude hold, and I'm going to start dropping in speed. I'm going to give ourselves a warning altitude of 800, so we don't do anything too drastic. So we go back into autopilot mode. We can see our CPL has switched off, so I'm going to switch that back on again. And so you can see the aircraft is trying to track to bring the course needle to the center of the flight path marker. We're down to 217, altitude. So I'm going to switch on.
Altitude.
Wait till it levels out. Okay, so I've dropped down quite significantly in altitude, and I'm going to pull up and level us. And I'm going to switch on the auto throttle. So you can see it's kind of bouncing back a little bit, back and forward. And what I would normally do at this stage is I would normally tune in the heading, our heading bug, to our waypoint. And then what we can do when we're on the course line is we can swap over from CPL mode back to heading select mode. And now we can see our runway is dead ahead of us. We're on a reasonable speed, 188 and 400 in altitude, and so we're reasonably well lined up for that runway should we want to switch off our autopilot mode and land. Okay, let's quickly look at the attitude hold mode of the autopilot. We are now switched out of autopilot mode, but if we change the pitch on our aircraft, let's say we pitch up to 5 degrees nose up, and we set the attitude hold, the aircraft will maintain that pitch rate until the aircraft runs out of speed or fuel. Similarly, if we switch it off, we'll leave it on and we switch the altitude hold mode, it will then bring us back down to level flight. If I switch it off, both off, and we pitch down, switch it on, we'll be held altitude at this descent rate.
Altitude.
So if I switch the barometric altitude on, the altitude hold will take precedence over the attitude hold for climb and descent. Now if we have switched the attitude hold off and we want to go into a turn, I'm going to set the altitude hold to keep us in this turn. In order to keep this turn rate constant, we use the attitude hold, and that will maintain this turn rate at this altitude until again we run out of fuel. So this is a very useful mode if we wish to, for instance, remain in a holding pattern at a constant turn rate and a constant speed. And what I like to do if I'm descending using the attitude hold, what I can do is from the data and aircraft and barometric altitude, I can set our warning level, and then go into attitude hold mode, and I can continue to work heads down, knowing that the altitude warning will tell us that we've hit our minimum altitude.
Altitude.
In which case it's time to level up. That's pretty much all I need to do with the autopilot, and I hope you found this video useful and interesting, and feel free to like, dislike, subscribe and comment, and until the next time, this is Fish Out.